The Proxima system had never witnessed anything like the fleet that assembled in its outer reaches. War Prime Zethkalar commanded the largest hegemony force ever deployed, with ships from all 12 member species arranged in perfect mathematical formations that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. Every vessel had been equipped with new tactical computers designed specifically to counter human unpredictability, and every crew had been trained in the new protocols that promised to solve the human problem once and for all. Final status report. Zethkalar commanded from his position on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest. Battle analyst Krinder consulted his displays with satisfaction. All 247 ships are in position, War Prime. The new predictive algorithms have been loaded into every tactical computer, and all crews have completed training in counter-chaos protocols. Our mathematical models now account for 15,000 different variations of human tactical behavior. Tactical Secondary Morthan added his confirmation. The formation provides complete coverage of all possible escape routes, War Prime. No matter what unpredictable maneuver the humans attempt, we will be ready to counter it. Fleet Coordinator Vexandra reported from her communications station. Long-range sensors detect the human fleet approaching from the designated coordinates. They appear to have brought additional vessels, but their total force remains insignificant compared to our capabilities. Zethkalar nodded with grim satisfaction. The humans had cost them valuable ships and damaged their reputation, but that humiliation was about to end. The new tactical systems would eliminate the element of surprise that had given the humans their previous advantage. Mathematics would triumph over chaos, as it always had throughout hegemony history. Maintain formation and await my command, he ordered. Today we demonstrate that there is no military problem that cannot be solved through superior analysis and overwhelming force. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, watching the massive alien fleet through the main view screen. His ship had been repaired and upgraded with new systems, but more importantly, it was no longer alone. Flanking the Defiant were 5 other human vessels, each one representing a different approach to the coming battle. Behind them, barely visible, against the starfield, were ships from 3 alien species that had chosen to join the human cause. Report on our allies, Morrison requested. Commander Lisa Carter consulted her tactical display. The Calarian Resistance Fleet consists of 12 ships, sir. They may not have the latest technology, but their crews are highly motivated. The Vorthak defectors brought 8 vessels, including 2 heavy cruisers that should pack quite a punch. The Zilnari engineers have modified their ships with some very creative weapon configurations. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her science station with excitement in her eyes. Captain, the coordination between our allied species is fascinating. Each group is maintaining their own tactical patterns while contributing to an overall strategy that none of them could achieve alone. Morrison smiled. The coalition he had built over the past few weeks represented something the galaxy had never seen before, a military alliance based on cooperation rather than domination. Each species contributed their unique strengths while maintaining their independence and tactical flexibility. Lieutenant Commander Hughes, are you ready to show the hegemony what real military evolution looks like? Morrison asked. The tactical officer grinned from his position at the weapons console. All ships report ready, sir. The new communication protocols are working perfectly, and every captain understands their role in the overall plan. Master Chief, Tony Sullivan reported from his damage control station. All departments ready for extended combat operations, Captain. The crew is itching for another chance at those aliens. Morrison nodded and activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. Today we face an enemy that claims to have mastered warfare through mathematical precision and technological superiority. They believe that every military problem can be solved through analysis and overwhelming force. We're here to teach them that the greatest strength in warfare is not the ability to predict everything, but the ability to adapt to anything. The hegemony fleet began its advance with mechanical precision, each ship moving according to carefully calculated trajectories designed to counter every possible human response. Their new tactical computers processed millions of variables every second, predicting human behavior patterns and preparing appropriate countermeasures. Human fleet is maintaining standard approach vector, Morthen reported. Their formation appears conventional, War Prime. This matches prediction model 3847. Zethkalar felt a surge of confidence. The humans were finally behaving according to recognizable patterns. Implement response protocol Alpha 7. Begin the demonstration of superior firepower. The hegemony opened fire with devastating precision, their weapons targeting what their computers calculated to be the most vulnerable points in the human formation. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles filled space with deadly light, creating a display of firepower that should have overwhelmed any opposition, but the human response defied every prediction. Instead of scattering or retreating, the Allied fleet did something unprecedented. Each group of ships began fighting according to their own tactical doctrines while somehow coordinating with the others to create a unified defense. The Calarian ships used hit-and-run tactics they had perfected during their resistance movement. The Vorthak vessels employed their traditional heavy assault methods. The Zilnari engineers deployed weapons that seemed to violate the laws of physics. And the human ships tied it all together with their unpredictable adaptability. War Prime, their coordination makes no sense, Grinder reported with growing alarm. Each group is following different tactical patterns, but somehow they're achieving unified results? Our computers cannot model this type of cooperation. Morrison watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. The hegemony's perfect formation was designed to fight a single type of enemy using predictable tactics. But the coalition fleet was like a jazz ensemble, with each musician playing their own part while contributing to a greater harmony. Phase 2, Morrison announced. Show them what happens when cooperation becomes a weapon. Dr. Vasquez activated a communication system she had developed specifically for this battle. Instead of centralized command and control, the Allied fleet used a distributed network that allowed each ship to share information instantly while maintaining tactical independence. The result was devastating to the hegemony forces. Every time they adapted to counter one group's tactics, another group would exploit the opening. Their mathematical models, designed to predict and counter specific behavior patterns, became useless against an enemy that constantly evolved its approach. Impossible, Zethkalar muttered as he watched his superior fleet begin to suffer casualties. They're fighting as individuals while achieving coordinated results. The mathematics don't support this outcome. Morrison activated his personal communication channel to the hegemony flagship. War Prime Zethkalar, this is Captain Morrison. I'm offering you the same choice you offered us: surrender peacefully or face complete destruction. There was a long pause before the alien commander responded. Captain Morrison, how are you achieving tactical coordination without centralized control? That's the difference between your people and mine, Morrison replied. You've spent centuries perfecting warfare, but we've spent our entire history learning how to fight for something bigger than ourselves. You can't mathematically model courage, honor, or the willingness to sacrifice for others. The battle reached its climax as the hegemony fleet, designed for overwhelming superiority against inferior opponents, found itself outmaneuvered by forces that refused to follow any predictable pattern. Ship after ship fell to tactics that their computers couldn't anticipate or counter. Finally, Zethkalar made a decision that would change galactic history. All ships, cease fire. Open a communication channel to the human fleet. Morrison accepted the transmission with cautious hope. I'm listening, War Prime. Captain Morrison, the hegemony formally requests terms for peaceful resolution of this conflict. We acknowledge that our understanding of warfare was incomplete. Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew, seeing the mixture of exhaustion and pride that came with victory against impossible odds. War Prime, we're not interested in conquering anyone. We're offering you something better. The chance to learn that strength comes not from dominating others, but from working together as equals. 3 months later, War Prime Zethkalar sat in the observation lounge of the USS Defiant, watching Lieutenant Commander Hughes demonstrate human tactical flexibility to a group of hegemony officers. The former enemies had become students and teachers, each learning from the other's approach to military science. "Your species has taught us something valuable, Captain Morrison," Zethkalar said. "We believed that mastering warfare meant eliminating all variables and uncertainties. But you've shown us that true mastery means embracing uncertainty and turning it into strength." Morrison nodded from his position at the viewport. "War Prime, the greatest victory isn't conquering your enemies. It's turning them into allies." The emergency council chamber aboard the Eternal Conquest had never seen such chaos. Representatives from all 12 hegemony species sat around the massive holographic table, their various forms of agitation creating a symphony of clicks, hisses, and electronic whines. War Prime Zethkalar stood at the head of the table, his scaled features showing the strain of command for the first time in his long career. "Explain to me how a single primitive vessel managed to destroy 6 of our ships and force our entire fleet to retreat," he demanded, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of military tradition. Battle analyst Krinder activated his holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional recreation of the battle. The replay showed the human ship moving through their formation like a virus, infecting their perfect order with complete chaos. "War Prime, the human vessel violated every known principle of space combat. They used their own engine wash as a weapon, fired at empty space to create tactical advantages, and performed maneuvers that should have destroyed their ship." Tactical Secondary Morthan added his analysis. "Their behavior patterns defy mathematical modeling, War Prime. Every time our computers predicted their next action, they did something completely different. It was as if they were deliberately trying to be unpredictable." Fleet Coordinator Vexandra spoke from her position at the table, her ethereal voice carrying undertones of confusion. "War Prime, we intercepted some of their internal communications during the battle. They referred to their tactics as Protocol Wildcard, which suggests they have developed entire military doctrines based on chaos and unpredictability." Zethkalar absorbed this information with growing unease. In 3 centuries of hegemony expansion, they had encountered thousands of different species, each with their own approach to warfare. But all of them had followed some form of logical pattern that could be analyzed and countered. The humans appeared to use randomness itself as a strategy. "Options?" he asked. A representative of the Kethmori species activated his translator and spoke in harsh, guttural tones. "We could deploy our entire fleet against them. Overwhelming numerical superiority will eventually overcome any tactical advantage. That approach failed in our first encounter," Morthan pointed out. "The humans turned our numerical advantage against us by using our own coordination protocols as a weakness." The Zilnari engineer at the table projected technical specifications into the air. "Perhaps we should focus on technological superiority. Our weapons are far more advanced than anything they possess." Krinder shook his head. "Technology means nothing if you cannot target your enemy effectively. The humans created sensor shadows and communication dead zones that neutralized our technical advantages." Zethkalar listened to the debate with growing frustration. For the first time in hegemony history, their standard approaches to warfare had proven completely ineffective. The humans had not defeated them through superior force or technology, but by refusing to fight according to any recognizable rules. "We need to understand their psychology," he finally declared. "Assign our best analysts to study every piece of data we collected during the engagement. I want to know how they think, how they make decisions, and what drives their tactical choices." Meanwhile, aboard the USS Defiant, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his ready room reviewing the battle reports with a mixture of pride and concern. His ship had survived an encounter with a vastly superior force, but the victory had come at a cost. The Defiant was badly damaged, running on backup systems, and operating far from any human repair facility. Commander Lisa Carter entered the room, carrying a data tablet filled with intelligence assessments. Sir, we've completed our analysis of the alien fleet. The news is both good and bad, Morrison gestured for her to sit. Give me the bad news first. Their technology is at least 2 centuries ahead of ours in every category. Their weapons, shields, engines, and sensors all operate on principles we barely understand. If they decide to commit their entire fleet against us, we won't survive a second encounter. And the good news? Carter smiled grimly. They're completely dependent on centralized coordination and mathematical planning. During the battle, we monitored their communications and discovered that they have no concept of individual initiative or adaptive thinking. Every decision flows through their command hierarchy and gets processed by tactical computers. Dr. Elena Vasquez joined the conversation from the doorway. I've been analyzing the alien communication patterns, and I think I understand their fundamental weakness. They approach warfare like a science experiment rather than an art form. They expect every variable to be controlled and every outcome to be predictable. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. So they study their enemies, create mathematical models, and then deploy exactly the right amount of force to guarantee victory. Exactly, sir. But that approach only works against enemies who fight according to established patterns. When we introduced chaos into the equation, their entire system broke down. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Hughes appeared in the doorway, his face showing the exhaustion of the past few hours. Captain, I've been thinking about our next move. If we're going to survive this, we need to do more than just defend ourselves. We need to go on the offensive. Morrison raised an eyebrow. Explain. The aliens are probably analyzing our battle data right now, trying to create new mathematical models that can predict our behavior. But what if we give them false information? What if we deliberately feed them data that leads to incorrect conclusions? Dr. Vasquez leaned forward with interest. A deception campaign. We make them think they understand our tactics, then surprise them with something completely different. Carter added her own thoughts. We could stage fake battles, transmit false tactical discussions, and create the impression that Protocol Wildcard follows specific patterns when it actually doesn't. Morrison felt a plan beginning to form in his mind. The aliens were clearly intelligent and technologically advanced, but they had a fundamental flaw in their thinking. They believed that warfare could be reduced to mathematics and that every problem had a single optimal solution. There's something else to consider, he said. We intercepted communications suggesting that the aliens have conquered dozens of other species. What if some of those species are unhappy with their situation? What if they're looking for someone to show them that the hegemony can be beaten? Hughes nodded enthusiastically. A coalition of rebels, united by the knowledge that the aliens aren't invincible. It's possible, sir, Carter agreed. But first we need to survive long enough to make contact with other species. The aliens know where we are, and they'll be back with a better plan. Morrison stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the swirling gases of the Titan Nebula. Somewhere beyond those clouds, an alien fleet was preparing for another encounter. They would study the battle data, create new tactical models, and return with overwhelming force, but they were making the same mistake that every enemy of humanity had made throughout history. They were trying to solve the human problem through superior analysis and planning. They didn't understand that chaos wasn't a flaw in human nature, but its greatest strength. Signal the engine room, Morrison ordered. Tell Chief Davis to begin emergency repairs. We're not running from this fight. Sir? Carter asked. Morrison turned back to his officers with a determined expression. The aliens think they can study, use us like laboratory specimens, and develop a mathematical solution to defeat us. They're about to learn that the one thing you can never predict about humans is what they'll do when their backs are against the wall. Dr. Vasquez smiled. So we're going to give them a lesson in human psychology? Exactly, Morrison replied. By the time we're done with them, they'll understand that warfare isn't a science to be mastered, but an art that requires creativity, adaptation, and the willingness to break every rule in the book. As the Defiant's crew worked to repair their damaged ship, they began planning an operation that would challenge not just the hegemony's military might, but their fundamental understanding of what it meant to fight for survival. The aliens had claimed to have mastered war, but they were about to encounter an enemy that refused to be mastered by anyone. The countdown timer on the bridge of the USS Defiant showed 37 minutes remaining when Captain Jake Morrison made his choice. The alien fleet continued its perfect approach, each ship maintaining exact spacing and speed as if controlled by a single mind. Morrison had seen enough military formations to recognize deadly precision when he saw it, but he had also learned that precision could be a weakness if you knew how to exploit it. "All hands, this is the captain," Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. "We are about to engage an enemy force that outnumbers us 30-1. They have superior technology and firepower, but they've made one critical mistake. They think they understand how humans fight." Commander Lisa Carter looked up from her tactical display, her face pale but determined. "Sir, their lead ships are moving into attack formation. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now." Morrison nodded and turned to his tactical officer. "Lieutenant Commander Ryan Hughes, I want you to forget everything you learned at the Academy about proper space combat. We're going to do something completely different." Hughes frowned, his young face showing confusion. "Sir, I don't understand." "Good," Morrison replied with a grim smile. "If our own tactical officer doesn't understand what we're doing, then the aliens won't either. Prepare to implement Protocol Wildcard." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Protocol Wildcard was a theoretical combat doctrine that had been developed during the colonial wars but never actually used. It was based on the idea that chaos could be a weapon if properly directed, and that unpredictability was humanity's greatest military advantage. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, War Prime Zethkalar watched the human ship with growing interest. The vessel had not moved from its original position, and its weapons remained powered down. This suggested either complete surrender or some form of trap, but the hegemony's tactical models indicated that a single ship could not possibly threaten their fleet. "Status report," he commanded. Tactical Secondary Morthan consulted his displays. "The human vessel remains stationary, War Prime. No weapons charged, no defensive measures deployed. They appear to be waiting for something." Battle Analyst Krinder added his analysis. "This behavior pattern suggests they are preparing to surrender, War Prime. Most species realize the futility of resistance when faced with overwhelming odds." Zethkalar nodded. The mathematics were clear and simple. One ship against 30 could not possibly result in anything other than complete victory for the hegemony. Still, something about the human behavior troubled him in a way he could not quantify. "Begin the demonstration," he ordered. "Target there. Weapon systems and engines, disable but do not destroy." The hegemony fleet moved with mechanical precision, each ship taking its predetermined position for the attack. The formation was perfect, a masterpiece of tactical coordination that had been refined through centuries of warfare. Every angle was calculated, every firing solution was optimized, and every possible escape route was blocked. Morrison watched the alien ships maneuver and felt a familiar calm settle over him. He had seen this kind of precise, overwhelming attack before during the siege of New Titan, when the Colonial Defense Force had faced similar odds. The key was not to fight the enemy's strength, but to turn it against itself. "Hughes, are you ready?" he asked. The tactical officer nodded, his hands hovering over the controls. "All systems standing by, sir." "But I have to say this plan violates every principle of space combat." "That's the point," Morrison replied. "Fire engines, full power, take us directly into their formation." The Defiant lurched forward with sudden acceleration, its fusion engines flaring to life like a miniature sun. The ship shot toward the alien fleet, not in retreat but in a direct charge that caught the hegemony completely off guard. Morthan stared at his tactical display in shock. "War Prime, the human vessel is approaching us at maximum speed. This behavior makes no tactical sense." Zethkalar felt something he had not experienced in decades of warfare: confusion. The human ship was flying directly into the center of their formation, apparently intent on ramming the largest vessels. It was suicide, but it was also completely unpredictable. "Adjust formation," he ordered. "Do not let them reach the command ships." But the hegemony's perfect formation became a liability as ships tried to maneuver around the charging human vessel. The precise spacing that had been their strength now forced them to move in predictable patterns to avoid collisions. Morrison grinned as he watched the alien ships scatter. "Now, Hughes." "Give them something they've never seen before," the Defiant suddenly changed course, not in the smooth arc that most ships would use, but in a violent 90-degree turn that should have torn the vessel apart. The ship's artificial gravity system screamed in protest, but the advanced inertial dampeners held, allowing the crew to survive the impossible maneuver. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked frantically at her science station, monitoring the ship's systems as they were pushed far beyond their design limits. "Captain, we're operating at 140% of rated capacity. The engines won't take much more of this." "They don't need to," Morrison replied. "Just long enough to show our alien friends what chaos looks like." The Defiant dove under the alien formation, its engines at full burn. As it passed beneath the largest ships, Morrison gave his next order. "Hughes, vent the engine coolant, all of it." Lieutenant Commander Hughes hesitated for a moment, then complied. The ship's cooling systems dumped their entire load of superheated plasma into space, creating a massive cloud of ionized gas that blocked sensors and communications throughout the alien formation. "Master." Chief Tony Sullivan's voice crackled over the intercom from the engineering section. "Captain, we're venting atmosphere from the port cargo bay." "Looks like we took a hit." "Negative, Chief," Morrison replied. "That's intentional. Use it to change our trajectory." The escaping atmosphere acted like a thruster, pushing the Defiant into an even more erratic flight path. The ship tumbled through space like a wounded animal, but every movement was calculated to confuse and disorient the enemy. "Commander," Carter watched the tactical display with amazement. "Sir, their formation is completely broken. They're trying to regain coordination, but they can't see us through the plasma cloud." Morrison nodded. The first phase of his plan was working perfectly. The alien ships were so accustomed to fighting predictable enemies that they had no idea how to respond to chaos. Their superior technology meant nothing if they couldn't target their weapons effectively. "Phase 2, he announced. "Hughes, prepare to fire on apparently empty space." The tactical officer looked confused but followed orders. The Defiant's main guns fired into what seemed like empty vacuum, but Morrison knew better. The weapons were creating debris fields and energy distortions that would funnel the alien ships into predetermined positions. Chief Engineer Pete Davis reported from the engine room. "Captain, I'm reading massive structural stress throughout the ship." "We're holding together, but just barely. How long can we maintain this?" Morrison asked. "Maybe 10 minutes, sir. After that, we're going to start losing systems." Morrison calculated quickly. 10 minutes was enough time to complete his plan, but only if everything went perfectly. Unfortunately, perfect execution was not part of the human way of war. "Lieutenant Brooks, are you monitoring alien communications?" he asked. The communications officer nodded. "Yes, sir. They're trying to coordinate, but our plasma cloud is disrupting their signals. They're arguing about what to do next." For the first time in hegemony history, their tactical models had failed completely. The human ship was behaving in ways that defied all logic and mathematical prediction. Every time they tried to anticipate its next move, it did something completely different. Zethkalar felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The single human vessel was turning his entire fleet into a confused mass of ships that couldn't coordinate their attacks. It was impossible, but it was happening. "Warp Prime," Morrison reported, his voice tight with stress. "We have lost 3 ships to collision damage. The humans are somehow predicting our movements better than we can predict theirs." Morrison smiled as he watched the alien fleet struggle to adapt. They were learning what human commanders had known for centuries, that in the chaos of battle, the side that could adapt fastest would win. The aliens had spent so long perfecting their tactics that they had forgotten how to improvise. "All right, people," Morrison announced. "Time for the grand finale. Let's show them what happens when you threaten Earth." The Defiant emerged from the plasma cloud like a predator striking from ambush, its weapons fully charged and ready for the final phase of the battle. The Titan Nebula stretched across space like a cosmic painting, its purple and gold clouds hiding secrets that both civilizations were about to discover. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, watching the swirling gases part as his ship moved deeper into the phenomenon. The nebula provided perfect cover for a first contact meeting, but it also made long-range scanning nearly impossible. "Captain, we're detecting multiple contacts on the edge of sensor range," reported Commander Lisa Carter from her position at the tactical station. Her years as an intelligence analyst had taught her to read between the lines of sensor data, and what she saw made her uneasy. "The formation is massive, sir." "At least 30 ships, possibly more." Morrison nodded, his weathered face showing no emotion. 20 years of military service had taught him that first impressions in space could be deceiving. Size estimates? The largest vessel appears to be approximately 3 kilometers in length. The smaller ships are still bigger than anything. "In our fleet," Carter paused, double-checking her readings. "Sir, they're maintaining perfect formation spacing. I've never seen anything like it." Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her science station, her dark eyes filled with excitement despite the potential danger. As humanity's leading xenobiologist, she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. "Captain, I'm detecting energy. Signatures that don't match any known technology. These ships are definitely not human." Lieutenant Amy Brooks worked frantically at her communications console, trying to establish some form of contact with the alien vessels. "I'm broadcasting on all known frequencies, sir. Standard greeting protocols in 17 different languages, plus mathematical sequences and universal constants." Morrison walked to the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. The moment he had trained for his entire career was finally here, but something about the situation felt wrong. The alien ships were too perfectly arranged, too precise in their movements. It reminded him of a military parade rather than a first contact scenario. "Any response to our transmissions?" he asked. "Negative, sir. But I am detecting strong communication. Traffic between the alien vessels. They're definitely talking to each other." On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, War Prime Zeth Kalar studied the human vessel with mild interest. The ship was crewed by hegemony standards, but it showed signs of recent technological advancement. More importantly, it was alone, which suggested either supreme confidence or complete ignorance of proper military protocol. "Analysis report," he commanded. Tactical Secondary Morthan consulted his data displays. "The vessel appears to be a military design, War Prime. Approximately 800 meters in length, with what appear to be kinetic weapon systems and basic energy shields. Nothing that poses a threat to our forces." Battle analyst Krinder added his observations. "Their approach vector is interesting, War Prime. They entered the nebula at maximum scan range and proceeded directly to these coordinates. This suggests they knew we were here, but their single ship deployment indicates they do not understand our capabilities." Fleet Coordinator Vexandra monitored the human communication attempts with growing confusion. "War Prime, they are broadcasting what appears to be greeting protocols. This is unusual behavior for a reconnaissance mission." Zeth Kalar considered this information. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that sent a single ship to make first contact with a superior force. The behavior pattern did not match any of the standard models in their tactical database. "Transmit standard surrender terms," he decided. "All frequencies, all known languages. Give them the opportunity to submit peacefully." The transmission reached the Defiant within seconds, and Lieutenant Brooks nearly fell from her chair as the alien message flooded her communications array. The signal was incredibly strong and broadcast on every frequency simultaneously, showing a level of technological sophistication that far exceeded human capabilities. "Captain, I'm receiving a message from the alien fleet," she reported, her voice tight with tension. "It's being transmitted in perfect English along with dozens of other languages." "Put it through," Morrison ordered, the bridge filled with an alien voice that somehow managed to sound both melodious and completely emotionless. "Attention, human vessel. You have entered space claimed by the Galactic Hegemony. Your species has been classified as suitable for integration into our coalition. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Compliance will result in beneficial treatment for your species. Resistance will result in your complete destruction. You have 1 standard hour to respond." The message ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Morrison felt his blood run cold as the implications sank in. This was not the peaceful first contact that humanity had hoped for. This was a demand for surrender from a force that clearly viewed humans as nothing more than another species to be conquered. "Captain, they're moving," Carter reported. "The alien fleet is advancing in perfect formation. Current speed puts them at our position in approximately 40 minutes. Dr. Vasquez studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. "Sir, the energy signatures from those ships are off the charts. If they're weapons, we're looking at firepower that could level a city with each shot." Morrison turned to his communications. "Officer, any chance this is a misunderstanding, Lieutenant? Could there be a translation error?" Brooks shook her head. "Negative, sir. The message was clear and direct. They want us to surrender, and they're giving us 1 hour to comply." The captain walked to the main view screen, where the alien fleet appeared as a collection of bright dots against the nebula's colorful backdrop. Each ship maintained perfect spacing and moved with mechanical precision. It was both beautiful and terrifying. "Options?" he asked his senior staff. Commander Carter was the first to respond. "We could try to run, sir. The nebula might provide enough cover for us to escape." "Not likely," Dr. Vasquez countered. "If they found us here, they can probably track us anywhere in the system." Master Chief Tony Sullivan, who had been quietly observing from his position near the damage control station, finally spoke up. "Sir, with respect, running isn't going to solve anything. If these aliens are as advanced as they appear, they'll just follow us back to Earth." Morrison nodded grimly. The old soldier was right. Whatever happened here would determine not just the fate of the Defiant, but potentially the future of the entire human race. "Send a response," he ordered. "Tell them we appreciate their offer, but we're not interested in joining their coalition. Request immediate negotiations to discuss peaceful coexistence." Brooks worked quickly to compose and transmit the message. Within minutes, a response came back from the alien fleet. "Negative. The hegemony does not negotiate with inferior species. You have 53 minutes to comply with surrender terms." Morrison felt a familiar sensation in his stomach, the same feeling he had experienced before every major battle of his career. The aliens had made a critical error in their assumptions about humanity. They seemed to believe that superior technology automatically guaranteed victory, but Morrison had learned different lessons during the colonial wars. "All hands, battle stations," he announced over the ship's communication system. "Prepare for combat operations." As the Defiant's crew rushed to their positions, Morrison made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of following standard human military doctrine, he began to formulate a plan that would take advantage of the one thing the aliens clearly didn't understand: the human refusal to accept defeat, even when defeat seemed mathematically certain. The stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge everything both species thought they knew about warfare, courage, and the true meaning of victory. The stars in the Kepler sector burned cold and distant as the last enemy ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. War Prime Zethkalar watched from the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, as debris scattered across the void. Like metal rain. Another perfect victory for the galactic hegemony, achieved with mathematical precision and zero casualties on their side. The bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as his officers processed the battle data. Tactical Secondary Morthan approached with a data tablet. his forearms moving in the traditional gesture of respect. His species, the Vorthek, had been among the first to join the hegemony 3 centuries ago when they realized that resistance was not just futile but mathematically impossible. War Prime, the Calorian resistance has been completely eliminated. Morthan reported in the common tongue that all hegemony species had adopted. Total engagement time was 43 minutes and 17 seconds within 2% of our projected timeline. Zethkalar nodded, his scaled head catching the light from the tactical displays. As a member of the founding Zephyrian species, he had overseen more than 200 such campaigns. Each one followed the same pattern: study the enemy, calculate their weaknesses, deploy exactly the right amount of force, and achieve victory with minimal resource expenditure. It was warfare reduced to pure science. Casualties? He asked, though he already knew the answer. None, War Prime. The Calarians fought exactly as our behavioral models predicted. They attempted their standard defensive formation at coordinates 127.4 by 88.9, just as our analysis suggested. Our counterformation rendered their tactics completely ineffective. Battle Analyst Krinder looked up from his station, his insect-like features showing what might have been satisfaction in his species. The Calarians lasted longer than most recent conquests, but their tactical responses remained within acceptable parameters. They never deviated from established patterns. Zethkalar walked to the massive viewport that dominated the front of the bridge. Beyond the scattered debris, he could see the Calarian homeworld, a blue-green sphere that would soon become another productive member of the hegemony. The planet's inhabitants would be given the choice that all conquered species received: join the coalition and benefit from its protection and technology, or face complete annihilation. Most chose to join. The hegemony now consisted of 12 different species, each contributing their unique strengths to the collective. The Vorthek provided tactical analysis, the Kethmori supplied advanced weaponry, the Zilnari offered their superior engineering, and so on. Together they had created the most efficient military machine the galaxy had ever seen. Fleet Coordinator Vexandra, transmit the standard integration protocols to the Calarian government, Zethkalar commanded. They have 72 hours to respond. The tall, graceful Vexandra activated her communication array. Her species, the ethereal, had joined the hegemony not through conquest but through simple logic. They had calculated that resistance would cost them everything, while cooperation would grant them access to technologies and resources beyond their wildest dreams. Transmission sent War Prime. All frequencies are being monitored for their response. Zethkalar returned to his command chair, a masterpiece of engineering that interfaced directly with the ship's systems. As he settled into the neural links, data flowed through his consciousness like a river of pure information. Ship status, fleet positions, tactical assessments, supply levels, and thousands of other variables arranged themselves in perfect order within his mind. This was what separated the hegemony from every other military force in the galaxy. While primitive species relied on instinct and emotion, the hegemony had eliminated such inefficiencies. Every decision was based on mathematical models that had been refined over centuries of warfare. Every outcome was predicted and planned. For in advance, Morthan approached again, this time carrying a different data tablet. War Prime, our long-range scouts have discovered something interesting. A new species has emerged from the Outer Rim territories. Zethkalar's attention focused on the new information. New species were rare these days, as the hegemony had catalogued most of the galaxy's civilizations. Show me. The main display activated, showing a star map with a highlighted region near the galaxy's edge. Red dots marked the locations of recent activity, new colonies, trade routes, and what appeared to be military installations. They call themselves humans, Morthan explained. Our scouts estimate they achieved faster-than-light travel approximately 200 of their years ago. They have spread to 17 star systems and show typical expansion patterns for a Category 3 civilization, Krinder added his analysis. Their technology appears standard for their development level. Chemical rockets for atmospheric flight, fusion reactors for power, kinetic weapons for space combat. Nothing remarkable or threatening. Zethkalar studied the data with interest. It had been nearly a decade since the hegemony had encountered a new species, and longer still since they had found one worth adding to their coalition. Military assessment? Primitive but aggressive, Morthan replied. They appear to engage in frequent conflicts among themselves, which suggests they have not yet learned the efficiency of unified command. Their ships are crude but numerous, and they seem to favor overwhelming firepower over tactical precision. Typical behavior for a developing species, Vixandra observed. They will likely submit quickly once they understand our superiority, Zethkalar nodded. The pattern was always the same. Young civilizations fought among themselves until they encountered something larger and more organized. Then they either joined the larger force or were eliminated by it. The mathematics were simple and unchanging. Estimated conquest time? He asked. Krinder consulted his calculations. 6 standard cycles, War Prime. Their scattered colonies and lack of unified command make them vulnerable to our standard isolation tactics. We can defeat them piecemeal without risking a major engagement. Very well. Prepare the integration protocols and begin preliminary scouting operations. I want complete tactical assessments of their military capabilities before we make contact. As his officers moved to carry out his orders, Zethkalar remained in his command chair, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, these humans were going about their daily lives, unaware that their fate had already been decided by mathematical models and tactical algorithms. They would resist, as all species did, but their resistance would follow predictable patterns that the hegemony had seen countless times before. In the end, they would join the coalition or be destroyed. The mathematics allowed for no other outcome. Meanwhile, in a distant star system that the hegemony scouts had not yet reached, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. The ship was impressive by human standards, bristling with weapons and armor that represented the pinnacle of human engineering. But more importantly, it embodied something that the hegemony had never encountered: the human refusal to accept that any problem was unsolvable. Morrison had spent his career fighting in the colonial wars, conflicts that had taught humanity hard lessons about adaptability and survival. Unlike the hegemony, humans had learned that the most dangerous enemy was the one who refused to follow the rules. "Captain, we're receiving new orders from Fleet Command," reported Lieutenant Amy Brooks from the communications station. Morrison turned from the viewport where he had been watching the construction of humanity's latest orbital shipyard. "What do they say?" "We're being assigned to a first contact mission, sir. Long-range sensors have detected signs of alien civilization in the Titan Nebula region." Morrison felt a thrill of excitement mixed with apprehension. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe, and now they were about to find out. "Any details about what we might encounter?" "Negative, sir. The briefing materials are classified, but Admiral Parker mentioned that we should be prepared for anything." Morrison smiled. Being prepared for anything was something humans excelled at, even if they didn't always realize it. "Set course for the Titan Nebula, Lieutenant, and make sure all departments are ready for extended operations." As the Defiant turned toward its destiny, neither Captain Morrison nor War Prime Zethkalar could have imagined that their meeting would challenge everything both species thought they knew about warfare, survival, and the nature of victory itself.